Lisa. I have a photo of me with my cousins and my mom from an outing. I'm trying to remember if it was last summer or the year before. I think it was last summer. And so I'll have to look up the specific date and see what I have in my journal about the day. I remember a few things in particular about this day. So I want to, I know it was last summer, it was 2018. So I want to scrap this and just sort of capture the day. I don't have a particular theme to the page other than, spending some time with the family. The papers that I'm going to use is this collection from Maggie Holmes. Recently I've been using a lot of 6x6 pads and doing some cards. And when I came to this collection, I thought, okay, there's still a lot of stuff in here I could use for scrapbook pages. However, as much as I've always loved this line from crepe paper, I don't know anything new in ages, but I've had this a while, but I have had other lines like these. They don't tend to work as well for my photos. I love them, but they're not something that I can really use. It's like finding something in clothing that you think, oh, that's just beautiful. I just love to have that dress or love to have that blouse, and you get it home and you've nowhere to wear it. And that's kind of what I have with some of these papers. So I struggle a little bit to make these kinds of things work, but I'm going to go through the papers and the embellishments and see what things, I think I'll start with the embellishments, and see what things really speak to this photo and that I can use for this day, and just things that appeal to me, and we're going to make them work on a page, and then whatever's left I can start using for cards, because I have used this for a scrapbook page, for other scrapbook pages. I'm setting aside anything that I might remotely want to use over on the right, and then leaving some of these other things for other layouts. Some of these are cute little cards that I could put in for my husband's cards that I put in his pockets when he travels. And I really like those embellishments there that I just set aside that I would probably want to use. Now I'm picking a few papers that I think go with the photo and with the people. That black and white, my mother often is wearing black and white, so that's a good color that I want to work with here, and it goes with all those words that I'm adding. So I'm thinking of just doing this in a long column with the photo and a bunch of papers and embellishments around it. So I'm going to trim out the backing on some of those round embellishments and then see which one I might want to use. At this point I have not picked a background paper. It will be most likely something pretty neutral. Pulling out July out of the date thing. I had not looked up the date when I did that. I thought it was July, and it turns out it was. And it's good because I already used the August one. I think there was still another one of those month things in the pack. Now, I picked a slightly ivory colored paper from Basil for the background, rather than a pure white, because that works better with the embellishments, or with the papers that go with the embellishments. Just sort of organizing everything. And what I'm realizing is that I have some space over to the left that's really, really blank. So I'm starting to think about doing something with that area. I'm using the words that came with this as just, they're going to be the title, like remember. And I will use some numbers next to July when I figure out the date for this, or I'll use 18 for the year. Revisiting the embellishments one more time to make sure there's nothing that I'm missing, and I'm trying to figure out what to put there on the left, and I finally decided that it needed something more tone on tone, just to add some texture without really taking away from the color that all the embellishments provide. So I have some molding paste, and I've added a little bit of ink, the Sahara Sand ink refill from Stamping Up. And you can use any of your ink refills for this. Use Perfect Pearls for this kind of thing, just to add a little bit of color. Now, modeling paste will since it's white, when you add the color, you can see right away what color you're going to get, as opposed to a gel that's clear. You get a different effect, and I've talked about that in other videos, but with the white color here, as you add this color, that's the color it's going to dry. It's pretty close to this. And I'm using a stencil I got at Hobby Lobby from back in the stencil area, like the home stencil area. Those stencils are cheaper usually than the ones in scrapbooking, and sometimes larger, and you get some really interesting things. I've had this one for several years. I don't know if they carry this particular one anymore, but you know, that's a good place to shop for stencils. I'm just sort of lining this up the best I can and filling in this entire column with this really pretty design. And then that will dry, and it has now, and it gives us a nice tone-on-tone appearance. And I took what was left of the mixture and put it on a piece of designer paper, and I can use that on a card. We'll get everything laid back and a final arrangement for the elements on the page. I'm going to put the date in the lower left-hand corner, and that "and" I'm not going to end up using. So I need to find a little bit more paper to cut out the date. So I want to get a 1 and an 8 cut out. I don't really care so much about the day of the week. I just want to have it that it was 2018. Now I didn't choose to, but this would be a good place to add some ribbon and other embellishments to mix in with the prepackaged things and add a little bit more texture. I am going to add some rhinestones. Now what I did for journaling is I just typed up a bunch of little remembrances from the trip, and I tried to get something for all of us. Little things that my mother told, a little story, and I didn't put the story down here, but I just captured a little bit of that and what we shopped for, and just a few little odds and ends about the day. Typed those up, and I'm cutting them into strips and then laying them over there on the left side of the page. They sort of blend in with that design that I did. And then I'm looking at some rhinestones. I've got a heart I can add also, and then these little gold stones which kind of go with some of the yellows that are in the papers. Just give it a little bit of bling, also appropriate for my mom. And that will, I think, finish decorating the page. So let's take a close-up look at our page. Several of the papers from the paper pack, what embellishments that I thought fit our page here, and a couple of touches of pops of yellow, and then these little gold dots make the page have a little bit a little more pop to it. This texture though here, I really like that because it's more of a tone-on-tone, doesn't take away from the color on this side of the page, but it keeps this side from being quite so boring. And to me it sort of goes with the place that we were visiting here, the old house that was an art museum that we were visiting in one aspect of the day. So it sort of reminds me of that. The black and white color always reminds me of my mom. She happened to have on green that day, but that is typically her colors, are black and white. So it was a fun day, and a fun day to remember. So I hope you enjoyed the page. I made use of my crepe paper shine collection, and now I'll probably take the rest of this collection and just leave it here on my table and use it for some card making. Thanks for joining me today.